I'm the Director of Outreach, Programming, and Events in the Office of Community Partnerships, Planning, and Research at Grinnell College. I have the privilege of partnering with the Community Education Council board to bring the bucket courses every week. So excited to have everybody here. Today, before we get started, a few reminders. If you have a T-coil, please turn it on. If you could please silence your phone. I'll try to remember to ask you to unsilence your phone at the end, so help me remember that as well. And then if you have a chance to stick around, put chairs away at the end, that would be great. And then finally, we'll make sure that there's some time for questions after everything. So please save your questions, and I'll come around with a microphone to make sure everyone can hear your questions. So today, this is we scheduled much better weather for today. This is a rescheduled bucket course back, I don't remember the date, but there was winter weather that was happening, so a much nicer day today. So this is a rescheduled bucket course, and I convinced these individuals to please split it into two sections, or two parts. So today is going to be the first of two parts regarding the Build a Better Grinnell survey. Very excited to kind of take a step back, remember how we got to where we are today, quite honestly, as to where the data came from. How did we get, you guys get, I say we, royal we, it's not me. But how did you get to, community, thank you, to the data you have today. So the first part is going to be Nicole Brua-Behrens from Greater Poweshiek Community Foundation, and Melissa Strovers, who's great to see today, one of my colleagues who also works in the Office of Community Partnerships, Planning, and Research. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. We have some interaction that's going to happen here eventually, so that's why it took a little bit longer getting started, but it's going to be exciting. And with no further ado, could you please help me welcome Nicole and Melissa?
Hello. Can everybody hear me okay? I tend to have a quiet voice. So usually we tell people to put their phones away, at least young people, at things like this. But if you do have a cell phone here, take it out because we'll be using it shortly. So we're going to try something. We're going to try and do a Mentimeter and make this interactive. So welcome. Thank you so much for coming today and hearing more about the background of the Build a Better Grinnell assessment. As Sarah said, we'll be talking about the visioning process today, and then Monty Roper, who's here with us, will kind of dive into the data next time. And I'm sorry for the incorrect date. It is actually the 14th. So I thought, thank you. I thought I would share a little bit of information about Melissa and I. I see a lot of familiar faces here, but some of you might not know much about us. Melissa has been with Grinnell College for almost 14 years, which is amazing because I used to work with Melissa, I used to work with Sarah, and time just flies. So she is the Director of Community Development in Grinnell College's Office of Community Partnerships, Planning, and Research. And in her role, she works to align college and community resources in ways that strengthen the local economy, support working families, and promote long-term vitality across our community. She brings a decade of experience with community building and strategic planning, and she has had several key leadership roles across other community organizations outside of her work. And she has a BA in communications from Oklahoma Christian University and an MPA from Drake University. And a little bit about myself. I've worked at Greater Poweshiek Community Foundation since 2009. Prior to that, I was a city planner, and I worked for several community colleges doing grant writing and other kinds of activities, and been in the community for about 21 years. And my work at the Community Foundation often intersects a lot of the work that Melissa does because we're working with donors, we're doing community development activities, and trying to bring people together to talk about important community issues or needs. And I went to Iowa State University. I grew up in Iowa, went to Iowa State, went to Minnesota State University in Mankato, Minnesota, and then the University of Texas at Austin. And I love strategic planning, and I'm so excited to be here with Melissa today. And I was really honored to be part of the Build a Better Grinnell project that included 20 plus organizations and leaders and students and people across the community. So, okay, next slide. So this first slide, I just want you to take a look at these different community attributes. They were part of, they were all discussed and part of the Build a Better Grinnell assessment. But we're going to do an activity that I hope will give you a sense of the work that we did and how we were trying to get a very broad-based set of responses from community members. So these are parks and playgrounds, streets and infrastructure, schools, recreation, retail, and public safety. And I'm going to ask you in a moment to rate those from what you think is the highest priority to the least. And they're all pretty amazing attributes of community. So I think it won't be as easy as you think. So we'll see if this, okay. Control P, right? My tech people. I'm going to switch to a Mentimeter, which is a way that we can do polling using your phones. Okay. The first thing I'd like you to do is, there's a QR code on the screen here, and Melissa's going to be, or Jill is going to be walking around with it. So if I'm not sure if it'll work on this as far away as we are. So if you have a cell phone, if you have a camera on your cell phone, which most do, if you would scan that QR code, and it will bring you to what's called a Mentimeter, which is an online site that allows you to do polling. So, and for those of you that don't have a cell phone, we're just going to have you do kind of an old-fashioned polling where you raise your hands too. So I'll give you a few minutes. Okay, I think we're ready for instructions. So, okay. So you probably see, it's different on phones, of course, but you'll probably see that far screen. And so what you start doing now is clicking on each one of those things. Just, I'll do it for you too. Just click on each one, and then it'll put it up to the top. And there should be 6. And then what you see are the arrows on the right side of that allow you to move it up and down based on what you want to prioritize. So if you want, let's just say you feel like bike trails and recreation should be at the very top. See what I'm doing? Just clicking on the arrow till it gets to 1. And then you can fill in with the other 5 items. So, and hopefully that will start popping up on the screen, everybody's responses. Okay, all right. Well, so these are the results of all of your votes, basically. So, does anybody want to vote who did not have a cell phone? Does anybody want to weigh in on it? Just because I think this also shows that we need to use a variety of methods when we're doing research to make sure that everybody feels comfortable taking the survey or being involved. So it looks like schools is the first priority based on this poll, and retail and public safety are pretty neck and neck. And I think what also we need to think about is who's in this room and who's not. Oh, go ahead, Monty. Oh, yeah. Oh, you bet. Sorry. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And do that again if I yeah. Yep, and I will move it closer. So I think this exercise is important for a number of reasons. First of all, I had mentioned, the way we survey people is different depending on who you're surveying. You think about people who maybe don't speak our language, and you want as broad-based results as we can get. But then also, who's in this room and who isn't in this room. I would suspect not everybody feels this as strongly about schools being number one. Sometimes there are people who will agree with that, and sometimes there are people who won't. But there's just a lot to take into consideration when you're doing research. So that's what this activity was about, and more to get you involved in this presentation too. So I'm going to attempt to go back to the presentation and hopefully, okay. All right. So the Build a Better Grinnell project was a visioning project, and we, the last time we did something like this was probably about 12 years ago now, and it was time to update. The previous assessment was called Build a Better Grinnell, and we call it 1.0 because the new one, the one we just completed, is also Build a Better Grinnell, but we called it 2030. So there were a lot of similarities between the two research projects, but 10 years ago there weren't any researchers that were hired. We worked with volunteers, and I feel like this time around, and Monty will go into that in greater detail next week, there was a lot, it was a much more in-depth, rigorous process that we went through. I believe the past assessment in 2012 took about a year, but not quite. And this one took about 2 years, really, to complete. So, oops, I jumped ahead. Sorry, you're doing it. I don't need to. Yep. So why did we decide to do another assessment in 2022? As I said, it had been 10 years. A pandemic happened, which really changed our community and how we function in many ways. And it was just time to take a fresh look at what the community was saying about needs. And we also have seen this already. Assessments like these can be used for grant writing, fundraising, and other types of programming. So go ahead and jump back. So this project, this visioning project, was a needs assessment, but it really went beyond that. We were looking for information about gaps in needs, strengths and resources, values, and then creating some priorities for our community for the next 10 years. And we wanted to make sure that we were involving the community in the process, and that we were building a commitment to action together as a community. Go ahead. There were 3 project goals: build community pride and facilitate positive branding, build a commitment to action around a set of priorities, and identify and illuminate the set of the priorities which revolved around needs in our community. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn this over to Melissa. I'll try to hand this off. Great. Are you going to do that? Okay.
I'll try to do this. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. All right, good. So I'm going to jump into the section where we talk about collective impact. I'm going to try to speak slowly, but I get really excited about this framework because we've been using it for 10 years. And those of you that know me will know that I'm really going to try hard to go slow. So we, as Sarah said, the collective we, a lot of times when we're referring to we, we're talking about the community and all of you in the room who participated in some form or fashion. So collective impact is the framework that we used for the Build a Better Grinnell Visioning project. And the next few slides, I'm going to walk you through what is collective impact, how did we use it, and how have we used it. So we're going to go ahead and, do you want to advance, Nicole? Okay. All right. I love this picture of the fish all swimming in the same direction. This is actually Monica's slide. She she found this picture of the fish, and I think it's a really good illustration, because when you do a project like this, you want to bring partners together, community partners, and we'll talk about the community partners who are involved in this project, and really to align the resources to get everybody swimming in the right direction, because we know collectively we're much stronger if we can align our resources and focus on the common good of moving our community forward. So this particular framework was articulated in the 2011 issue of the Stanford Social Innovation Review. Collective impact, as I mentioned, what it does is brings organizations together in a structured way to align resources to achieve social change. And that's really what we did with Build a Better Grinnell, what we are in the process of doing with Better Grinnell, as Nicole will talk to you later on in our process or in our slides about some of the work that is currently being done. So the focus is really on alignment and results. And the application here is the Grinnell Education Partnership, for which we just celebrated our 10th anniversary. Next slide, please. So I want to talk to you a little bit today about the Grinnell Education Partnership. The partnership was started in 2015 by two of visionaries in the room, Nicole and Monica, leverage statewide resources to bring back here locally. The idea is that we would use another framework called the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. We like to use frameworks because we like to bring them to our community. They're proven, and we adapt based on the current needs of our community. So we use this Campaign for Grade Level Reading framework, applied it to collective impact, and you have the triangle, okay? So this particular project, the Grinnell Education Partnership, brings together organizations, for-profit, nonprofit, volunteers, government agencies, to align resources to, in this case, we wanted to support youth and families in Grinnell. So the way that we applied the collective impact framework is that Grinnell College and the Greater Poweshiek Community Foundation served as the backbones. Okay, and we'll get into what does it mean to be a backbone. So if you think about it, what we really did, and you'll see in the foundation here, is we worked together to provide what we call the collaborative infrastructure. So you might not see us out in front, but you'll see us behind the scenes. And Nicole really is my partner in crime with this. We've been doing this for 10 years. There are other people on our GEP team here, Jill Harris, Monica Chavez is part of our GEP team. So Grinnell College really serves as the backbone there, really supplying the people power, as I'm employed by Grinnell College to help support this work, as is Jill Harris and Monica as a part of her portfolio. And then you have Greater Poweshiek Community Foundation and all that Nicole brings with her strengths, as she mentioned to you in her introduction, with her grant writing and her ability to lead and convene and do strategic planning. So we work closely together to support this project, Build a Better Grinnell, similar to the Grinnell Education Partnership. But again, with the framework, because it is a framework, and we've learned over the years that we can adapt frameworks to meet the emerging needs of our community, that's what we did with Build a Better Grinnell. So you have the two organizations at the bottom, Grinnell College, Greater Poweshiek Community Foundation, providing that collaborative infrastructure. And then you have the 20 community organizations on the top, okay? So you'll see in just a minute how we've applied this framework to Build a Better Grinnell as we talk through the rest of the slides. So let's see, is there anything else that I want to point out here? Let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Nicole. Okay, so backbone. So what is a backbone? So a backbone can be one organization or it can be many. In the way that we've applied it, we've used two organizations, Greater Poweshiek Community Foundation and Grinnell College, serve as the backbone, providing that collaborative infrastructure to really help support strategy and logistics. And that's exactly what we did for the Build a Better Grinnell project. mobilizing funding. You'll see that here in a couple of slides later, and really helping to support the overall project. All right, next slide, please. I really like this slide because I think this is a really good representation of how collective impact works with regard to how community partners and how it's all tied together. So when we think about this work, we refer to it as a network-based approach. Essentially what that is, it's community partners coming together to align those resources to move projects forward, okay? With the college and Greater Poweshiek Community Foundation serving as the backbone. So it's really providing a depth and breadth that we wouldn't get independently, or we would get individually if we were working in silos. We're much stronger when we're together. And I love it because what it does is it allows us to come together and to co-create solutions. We're much better when we can create solutions together. All right, next slide, please, Nicole. All right, so now let's talk about how does collective impact, how did we apply that framework to the Build a Better Grinnell 2030 Visioning Project? So we're going to talk about, you remember at the top of that triangle, we're going to talk about the community partners involved, and we're going to talk about how did we mobilize funding and partners to really move this project forward. Okay, go ahead, Nicole. All right, so Nicole and I were trying to think, when did we start this thing, right? When did we start? I think we started discussions in the spring of 2022 when the initiating partners came together, some of which were involved in 1.0, and we started talking about, okay, why do we need an envisioning, like Nicole mentioned, coming out of the pandemic, it had been 10 years. It was really time to do an assessment of like, where do we as a community want to go? And we really wanted this to be highly participatory. And Monty did a great job of helping us get organized and be thinking about what that could look like. And he'll do a deep dive next week into some really amazing data. All right, next slide, Nicole. So as part of that initiating partners, there are a lot of people involved in this project to ensure that it was highly participatory. And one of the things that we recognized early on is that to utilize the collective impact framework in a way that's going to be most effective is we needed to get together a steering committee. So what you see on the screen are the list of the individuals and organizations who were involved in the on the steering committee for this project since its inception. And the role of the steering committee was really to help guide the research, help to really support the work that Monty was doing, and really a way for us to all come together and really help lift up and move the project forward. We could not have done this project without the folks up here. It was a team effort, and they met regularly over 2 years, almost monthly. And there were some really difficult decisions that had to be made, and this group came together and really made it happen and worked through some of those decisions. And Monty will talk about the research, and you'll see how those priorities were identified and the role of the steering committee really applied in Monty's research here. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. All right, now I want to jump into funding. So with the backbone role, right, one of the areas that we help do is support the funding, right? And so Grinnell College has an amazing grants team, and they learned about a USDA rural placemaking grant, and we applied. And I tell you what, that was a quick turnaround. I'm telling you, a couple of weeks, and I think Monica and I were in Ohio. Nicole was in Florida on vacation, and we had to submit a federal grant. And I don't know about you guys, but you probably have dealt with the federal government in applying for forms online. It was no easy task. Well, guess what? We got the funding, and it was amazing. And we couldn't have got the funding without the support of our local community partners. So I put up here, there was $40,000 in local funding. So we were able to achieve getting the grant because of the local funding that went in, that was provided by the City of Grinnell, Grinnell Mutual, the Claude and Dolly Arns Foundation, and Grinnell College. Again, right, leveraging the resources in the community, using the staff capacity that we had at Grinnell College, and using the resources with Nicole's grant writing experience to really submit the grant application. And that's really what I think really spurred us on, and probably a more just a more intensive kind of way, right? We had talked about this, but sometimes there's nothing like a good deadline, and when there's money attached to it, boy, that really gets you going really quickly. So let's go ahead and go on to the next slide. So we, the town of Grinnell, through this application, the Grinnell College applied for, we were the first community in the state of Iowa to receive this grant. And that is, I think, a really special opportunity that we had to get this kind of funding and really to lift up our community. And much of the work that we're doing is we're also want to shine a light on Grinnell to say, hey, we're doing some cool things and we're a pretty cool town. And this certainly did that. We've had an opportunity to speak at the state level about us getting the grant. And our approach using collective impact is a really unique approach in the way that we organize community partners. So I mentioned to you that we had $40,000 in local matching funds from 4 partners. It really strengthened the research capacity. We're actually able to hire Monty, which was great, right? Because this is a community project, and so we were able to get more of Monty's time, and we were able to hire a research coordinator who worked for Monty, Belle Kugel, which I'm sure Monty will talk a little bit more about Belle, and a research team. So that funding was really the impetus to help us really get started in a deep way, and I want you to hold that each 10. So each of the partners that you saw in the previous, so that would be Grinnell Mutual gave 10, the City of Grinnell gave 10, Grinnell College gave 10, and the Claude and Dolly Arns Foundation gave 10, right? So let's see. And then what it really did was just allowed us to do so much more. The grant allowed us to do so much more than we would have been able to do, you know, than the funding that we had. So we had 40,000, 200,000 goes a lot further than 40,000, right? And so we were really thrilled to be able to get this grant and really formalize the process. Okay, next slide, Nicole. All right, so the grant was 2 years. We just wrapped up the grant in September of 2024. We were able to hire Katie Wells from WU Marketing, and she did a really nice job of wrapping up our branding, because really what we're doing now is Monty has all this amazing research, but now it's like it's time to put it into action, right? From research to implementation. So this is an ad that we took out, again, recognizing our steering committee and how they contributed, and really recognizing the community too, and Monty will talk a little bit more about that next week, and how important it was to make sure that this particular project was participatory. So with that, I'm going to go to the next slide and turn it over to Nicole.
Before we go on back to Nicole, it's that time. We usually take about a 5-minute break, 5 to 10 minutes, 8 sometimes. Actually, honestly, it's usually 8. So let's pause, and then we'll move on with the presentation. We will, again, ring the bell when it gets close to time. So let's take just a little bit of pause. We can go to the restroom, get some refreshments, and we'll be back here at about 10 till. Nicole, sorry to stop your conversation, but if we want to gather back. Oh, and Jill, are you passing out little treats for everyone as well? Yeah, pens and pads of paper. So, yeah, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
We meant to pass those out at the beginning and just forgot. So if you didn't get a notepad and a pen, or if you want another one, please raise your hand. All right. So where are we today? You know, that we consider the kind of the completion of the process around September, October of 2024. So the work is not ending though. Now is when we're hoping organizations and people across the community take the assessment information and start creating action around it. So these are the 7 priorities that were identified, the top priorities that were identified by the community: improve drinking water, more restaurant variety, expand mental health services, improve K through 12 buildings, improve roads, reduce racism, and higher wages, lower prices. And those aren't in any particular order. As we've been saying, Monty will go into detail about all of these at the next session, but these are the areas that we're hoping to create action around. So projects that have sort of come underway over the last 8 months since September when we held that community meeting. And there's a lot already that's happened. So not necessarily as a result of this project, but we hope that this project propelled these projects forward. The PEPL vote, and obviously the elementary school that will be built out at Arns Park, that was school infrastructure, or school buildings and infrastructure was overwhelmingly chosen as a top priority. Several new restaurants have opened since the project is completed, and some of those may have been in the works. New citywide water infrastructure, that definitely was in the works, but it came out in the assessment as a priority. We've held visioning sessions in partnership with Grinnell Area Mental Health Consortium. Mental health was definitely an area of priority. And so the JPK organization is very interested in taking the data and putting it into action. The city hired a communications and community development specialist. Across all of the priorities, communication was something that kept coming up, not knowing what's happening across the community. And so the city has responded by hiring Adrienne Harden, and she's out there trying to make everybody aware of different things that are going on across the community, not just city-related activities, but other activities. The Grinnell Alliance is working to build connections across the community, and the Grinnell Alliance is tied to the racism priority, reduced racism priority in the assessment. And then we have the NEST basic income pilot, which is tied to the higher wages, lower prices priority. And a basic income pilot is a group of, it'll be a group of about 15 people who live in the community who are low socioeconomic status, and they will be getting a monthly stipend to see how that changes their well-being and how that changes their lives. So these, in the last, some of these projects had started before we completed the process in September, October last year, but we do feel like many of them have been supported by the Build a Better Grinnell process. Okay. Oops, I think I missed a slide. I had one more slide where I was going to talk about some of the information that we gathered. In every 6 months, we're going to do an assessment of where projects are in the community relating to those 7 priorities. And we did our first assessment in April, and we send it by email to anybody who ever, whether you were participated in a focus group or you signed up to be on the listserv. We sent it out to everybody that we had an email for that we'd collected over the 18 months of the project. And some of the things we heard were, thank you for bringing us together, giving this this process for to hear our opinions. And another person talked about the fact that people don't always get asked how their lives are being affected by things that are happening across their community, and the Build a Better Grinnell assessment was one of the ways that they've been asked about that. So I'm sorry, I had a, you know what, I think I have a paper copy of it. Let's see. Anyway, yeah. So I'm going to turn it over to Melissa, and we will entertain any questions that you might have about any of this data. Or Sarah. Maybe Sarah's the question.
Well, real quick, I wanted to point out a couple things. I maybe know just a little bit enough to be dangerous. So let me know if, shut me down if this is. So you have website. And this is a really, really great website to find out both the process that they've talked about and the findings. So it's a lot of information both today and next week that we've thrown at you. So please check out that website. And you'll have updates as things go on too, I assume, in that website.
There is a group that meets in Grinnell, I think 4 times a year, and they listen to appeals, and then a vote is taken, and whatever group gets the vote, everybody writes a check for $100. Do you have any connection with that group?
I'm one of the members, but our organization is not part of it. It's just it is a group of 100 plus people who care about initiatives in the community. Yep.
That's a good question. The Build a Better Grinnell, it's .com at the end. Good question.
Yep.
Oh. See, maybe. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Thank you, Bonnie. Sorry. .org.
Also, you can just bring up your Google browser and put in Build a Better Grinnell, and it will show up as well. So if you don't remember the URL and you're interested later on in going back and downloading the report and looking at all of the information, you can just go into Google and put Build a Better Grinnell, and it will show up too.
Okay, I have another thought, real quick. Last week I wasn't here because I went on a jam-packed trip with the Greater Des Moines Partnership to Washington, D.C. I have a great chance to meet with our Iowa delegation, all of our senators and representatives meet with us throughout the whole time we're there, and their staff members, and then leaders from 6 different counties, including Poweshiek County. I'm getting to my question, 2 seconds. So it's very exciting to see this project happen because the first night that we're there, there's a rooftop reception, and a lot of people from the federal government are there. And one of the people that was there, one of the times, was the director of USDA. And I remember we met her that evening. The next morning by 7 a.m., we were sending an email to her asking about, because she was talking about placemaking grants. So it's so exciting to see how one conversation, just meeting someone on a rooftop, can bloom into such amazing work. So thank you, and it was a really good connection to make at the time. And I'll give next question. Then my question is, when you talk about every 6 months, I'm wondering about any outreach to our elected officials, because I will have to say one thing I heard last week was we want to hear what's going on. And so I think that you're going to capture a lot of things that would be really helpful for them to hear and know, especially as things move forward in this session at the federal level.
Okay, I'm going to try to remember your first question, your first point, and then second point. So Sarah's point about finding out about the grant through the network and the work that she does in government relations for Grinnell College. Again, Grinnell College as an anchor institution, which is an anchor institution is an institution that's interested in doing community development and advancing the common good for the community, as some of you may have heard President Harris talk about. And the good work that Sarah does in her government connections, right? It's through the work and the connections that they have with the government that they can find out about resources like a grant so that we can apply. So it's building trust. And that was one of the things that I think is weaved through here, but about the importance of really intentionally building trusted relationships, as Sarah has with our government officials, as we have with GPCF, as we have with so many of the partners that you see on the screen. Those partnerships are what enable us to do this kind of work in the community, so that when we have a disaster like a derecho, we can pull together quickly, we can organize our funding, we can make improvements in the community. And so that's why that collective impact and that building that trusted network is so crucial to the work that we do in the community. And really it's what advanced and propelled this project. Second point, government, right? So I think, Sarah, like your point about letting elected officials know is great, and I would love to do a roadshow. So if you have opportunity or connections to introduce us, we can do that. Monty's, like, I'm sure Monty's willing to go on a roadshow with us. And I think that it is important that people understand this model of collective impact. Sarah and I have been to a couple of rural development conferences, and when we talk about this framework that we're using, people find it very interesting because essentially what the framework is, collaboration on steroids is how I like to describe it, right? In a framework that's a structure, it's research-based, it's proven. We have 10 years of success with the Grinnell Education Partnership, and certainly we want to share that with other communities across Iowa and that it might help them as well. So I'll turn it back to you.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, I think then we might be done. This is totally fine. We'll be done a little bit earlier today. That's totally fine. If you have further questions, especially after next week, maybe it might be a little bit difficult to have questions at this point, but if you have questions, you can also bring them up from this session next week. Sorry, Monty, but I believe in you. You can do it. So please bring those up next week, but keep this in mind. This presentation will hopefully be soon on the Grinnell Bucket Course website. So if you want to have a refresher for next week, that'll be up. Usually, you guys do it pretty quick. Next 2 days. This weekend for sure. You can take a look at it before next week's presentation. So please help me thank both Nicole and Melissa for the presentation today. And then, like I said, next week is Professor Roper, your turn. It's Monty's turn to tell us all the findings and all the data that was discovered during this process. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy the rest of this beautiful day, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Take care. Thanks.
Turn your phones back on.
Oh, sorry. See? Thank goodness, you guys. Yeah, turn your phones back on. Thank you.